shine like the sun when it comes up from the city, from the rooftops. 'Cause today's gonna be my day. I just wanna climb to the top of a mountain, standing tall when I'm howling. 'Cause today's gonna be my day, it's gonna be my day. Good night stress, see you in the morning. I don't gotta guess, you're always there for me. Sowing them seeds of doubt, I think you like seeing me freak out. Good night stress, see you in the morning. So I wake up, I get out of bed, stay out of my head 'cause it's dangerous, and I don't wanna lose my mind, no.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Quarantine Chats. This is episode number 48. I'm Isaiah. I'm joined by my guys, Trevor Williams and Ryan Schreiner, and we are joined today also by a very, very special guest, Stephen Gillaspie joins us. Stephen, how are you doing, my man?
I'm glad. Thank you for correcting my name. Yep, it's Stephen Gillaspie. I'm doing awesome, guys. It's my honor to be here with you guys. The introduction, Isaiah, was way too nice. I'm just a dude. So I appreciate you guys having me on the show to talk about some of the cool things happening in the sports world today.
Yeah, no problem, man. Glad to have you on. And before we get started, I want to ask you, Stephen, about your podcasting career. What made you decide to get into sports podcasting, and tell us about your podcast and also the website that you are making?
All right, yeah, man. So my podcast is called Breaking the Game with Stephen Gillaspie. You know, I was looking for a podcast name that's kind of catchy to people and it's kind of current and contemporary. You know, the Golden State Warriors, I'm not a fan or anything like that, but, you know, their style with the three and the flair, a lot of people said that they were breaking the game. I think that that's a neat take on how the NBA has changed. So that inspired the name. Obviously, my name being the with Stephen Gillaspie, that was the easy part for me. What inspired me to do it, man, is, you know, I moved from Georgia. I'm in the Navy, so I moved from Georgia to Washington State. I didn't really know a lot of people, so I was kind of looking for a hobby to do. So I was looking to get into podcasting, and, you know, I started, you know, paying for websites that, you know, people who get paid to do what they're doing, and, you know, NBA executives, they use those websites to, you know, for writing and stuff like that. So I started getting into that and, you know, wanting to kind of share my stuff out there with everybody. And I found myself reading a lot because I'm a big analytics guy, and I didn't want to do a lot of reading on my show. So I was like, okay, let me make a blog. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to just talk about basketball. Let me talk about all the other sports going on in North America. And then when I realized when I was developing my site, like all these neat little tools and tricks that you can use to draw in an audience, I was like, I don't want my website to fizzle out. I don't want it to, you know, be up in a day and, you know, me not be able to meet the demand of the audience that I'm trying to reach. So, you know, I started reaching out to folks and, you know, bringing on a staff. I got about 7 or 8 people right now, and we're going to be covering, you know, the NFL, NBA, MLB, you know, MMA, college football, and basketball. And the name of the platform is going to be called All Aspects Sports. And, you know, that's basically where the dream came from a hobby to, you know, putting that hobby into something that I take very seriously, that I found you know, a bunch of passionate people who love sports just like I do, just like you guys do. And, you know, we're basically rolling out here August 1st. Be on the lookout for us. You can find us at allaspectsports.com once the website's up. And yeah, we're excited, man. I've been reaching out to a lot of different, you know, beat writers of the NBA, got some cool episodes lined up.
Yeah, man, that is awesome. I know, like, yesterday, I believe, you had the Pelicans beat writer, Christian Clark, on your show. I can't wait to, you know, tune into your show to hear that episode. Ryan, Trevor, do you guys have any other questions?
I don't really have any questions. I'm excited that you're on the show. This is like a great opportunity for both of our networks and opportunity for viewers to see us working together and, you know, future projects down the line, future episodes. So this is a really great opportunity for everyone here.
Yeah, man. Go check out Steven's website, allaspectsports.com. Can't wait for it to launch. I know it's going to be great, but I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to introduce our topics for today.
All right. So our first topic of choice that just happened recently, the signing of Cam Newton. This has been a new hot take for a lot of people, and there's a lot of pros and cons to this signing, and people are like thinking, what could this be like? I want to hear Steven's hot take on what this is going to be for the New England Patriots. Is it going to be a good thing, or is it going to be a bad thing?
Man, I wish I could predict stuff out like that, but I'll go ahead and give you my spin on what I think it's going to be. It's going to be very different. You have Cam Newton, who, pretty much carried the Panthers for years and years, won an MVP with that team. He was essentially their entire offense, even though they had a great receiver like Steve Smith, even though they got a great running back like Christian McCaffrey. It was interesting to see Cam basically under Coach Ron Rivera be that whole offense, and even through injury, playing through them all, never wanting to miss a play. There was a lot of talk about his personality, things like that. He liked to celebrate. Whether or not you're into that, I think is irrelevant because he brought it every night. And replacing a guy like Tom Brady, who, every time he threw a touchdown and gave a fist pump, the New England faithful were like, yeah, go Tom Brady, go Julian Edelman. But, Cam Newton doesn't really get that love. And now you introduce him under Coach Bill Belichick, who, every time you see him on the sideline, he looks like a Star Wars villain, right? Very straight face, very stern, doesn't really have a lot of personality. You never see him get excited one way or the other. And now you're going to introduce Superman dabbing, every time that he either runs or throws for a touchdown, and, going to be dressing like Mrs. Doubtfire, in post-game interviews. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how that works. I think that it works well. Jared Stidham is a young guy. Don't really know a whole lot about him. But, if Bill Belichick's interested in Cam Newton, then I think that it's a good thing. And I think that he's going to get a chance to show his versatility as a head coach with a versatile quarterback for the first time in his career.
Very good hot take.
Man, great point, Steven. For me, I like the move by the Patriots just because it shows that they want to compete this upcoming season. I know a lot of people, when Brady left and the Patriots didn't really do that much on the free agent market and also in the draft, people were writing them off saying, oh, yeah, they're going to be tanking this season for Trevor Lawrence. But Bill Belichick said, not so fast, guys. We're going to compete this season. He signed Cam Newton. I love that move in that aspect. But in terms of if it's a good move, I don't necessarily think that it's a good move. I think it's more of a question mark because when is the last time Cam Newton has been fully healthy? That's like, 2 to 3 years ago? He's had shoulder issues, foot issues, a bunch of other medical issues. I just think, that's a big question mark. And you combine it with the fact that the Patriots offense, their offensive line last year was one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and I think they got worse this year just because they lost Dante Scarnecchia, their legendary offensive line coach who was there for 40 years. Whenever Dante Scarnecchia is not with the New England Patriots, their offensive line immediately declines. So that might be an issue for them. Their wide receiving core, you have Julian Edelman, Mohamed Sanu, N'Keal Harry. It's not really that good. It was a problem last season, and they didn't really do that much to upgrade it. Tight end-wise, they have a couple unproven tight ends from the draft. They didn't really do that much to upgrade that either. It's just so many question marks. So I'm interested to see if it works out, but I'm not sure because there's so much question ranging from Cam's health to the Patriots' weapons.
I just have to say simply this, and that I disagreed that it could in any way be a bad move for the Patriots. They invested like $1 million base salary. There is some heavy incentives, but the thing is, none of it's guaranteed. So if Cam Newton can't get healthy, the Patriots don't lose anything. It's a very low risk, but very high reward. Cam Newton is a former NFL MVP. You don't see those, just sitting in free agency at this point in the year. I mean, it was an incredibly smart decision on both the Patriots and Cam Newton because Cam Newton, like you said, had injuries the previous years, which has taken a hit on his reputation in terms of his on-field play. But Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels will scheme up the best offense for Cam because that's what they do best. They scheme offenses that fit their personnel. And we may see a change in New England. You may see rolling pockets, quick passes, kind of play calling to negate this not great offensive line, as you alluded to. So my reaction to this is simply this. I'm sorry, Bills. I'm sorry, Bills fans everywhere. Bills Mafia, I'm sorry, but you're gonna lose the Patriots again. I predicted the Patriots before this signing would go 9-7 and win the division. All this did was just make that an absolute certainty in my mind. Before, I was like 50-50 on if they win the division, but now I'm just 100% certain they'll win the division. Maybe even increase the win total to around 10 wins. So, yeah, really, this signing just should make every single Bills fan around the world very sad because it just ensures that the Patriots dynasty, at least in that division, continues for the next 5 years.
Very good take, Ryan. I'll put a different spin on it, but like almost piggyback off of it. The signing of Cam Newton is the New England Patriots taking the opportunity to understand the mobile quarterback. For all their time with Tom Brady, he wasn't a mobile quarterback. He was stuck in the pocket and forced to pass. Now you have a player that can extend the play, make the play last longer. So if Cam Newton can get out of the pocket and scramble, he can hit Edelman deep, or Edelman can break his route and make something creative happen. So they're going to test this out. And if they do poorly because of it, they'll have enough. They'll fall early in the draft so they could get Trevor Lawrence or trade up if they wanted to do it. And they end up developing that understanding of a mobile quarterback system since they already experienced with Cam Newton. And Trevor Lawrence is more mobile than Tom Brady, but it's like not the same power of Cam Newton and speed, but he can still get out of the pocket if need be. So this is going to be a new take for New England, and they can experiment. They have nothing to lose by experimenting with Cam Newton in this play.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
So I think that we're focusing on the Patriots offense and the passing game, obviously, right, with Cam Newton. You know, Trevor, you just alluded to it a little bit, and Ryan, you did a little bit too with those quarterback roles, you know, maybe quick passes. What about the backfield, right? Like, I don't think enough's being talked about, you know, guys like White and guys like Sony Michel. I think they benefit, you know, in a big way with Cam Newton because the defense isn't going to be able just to focus on the running game on, you know, a first or a second down. You know, they're going to have to focus on a passing game and even like maybe a couple option plays. I think New England's going to do a better job than Carolina did. We talked about Cam's injuries. All of that was offense, you know, offensive scheming because Cam Newton was the offense. You know, they were designed quarterback runs, options, sweeps, what have you. And I think that with the coaching staff in New England, they're going to be able to use that a little bit more, you know, in a better way, for lack of a better word, with Cam. But I think that the running backs in New England are going to benefit along with the receivers and the tight ends because Cam is so dynamic. He's going to be able to make everybody's job a little bit easier. At least that's how I feel.
And I have a couple additional points to add in that even when Cam's been like semi not healthy, like when he had that shoulder issue a few years ago, he's always been great in the red zone. And the thing with New England, they will always have a great defense. I know they lost some key pieces, but they will still have a good defense. And good defenses means the offense has a shorter field to work with. And given that, I think Cam's, you know, best attributes being like close to the red zone will be very beneficial because in like previous years, there was always just passing in the pocket with Tom Brady or run. Now it's those two options, but then Cam scrambling out, scoring touchdowns from like 5 yards out. The defense can't just sit in the end zone. It's going to add a level, or it's going to add some dynamic nature to the Patriots offense that defensive coordinators just never had to worry about with Tom Brady. So it's just going to add something new. And to Isaiah's point that the New England wide receivers aren't that great, I honestly disagree. You give me a healthy Sanu, Harris, who came off a rookie year filled with injury, give him a full offseason healthy, he could come back and show that he was a first-round wide receiver. And then you have old reliable and Julius Edelman, who will always be there on third downs. He's like a quarterback's best friend on third down. So honestly, those three make up a average at worst receiving core, in my opinion, when all three are fully healthy. Yes, the tight end situation's up in the air, but they did draft a couple of them. So who knows? Maybe one pans out to be an average tight end, and that's really all they would need. So yeah, I'm just really optimistic about the Patriots offense. I think it'll be better with Cam Newton than it was with a 43-year-old Tom Brady. And I have to emphasize that 43-year-old because obviously Tom Brady aged like 38's better, but I thought Tom Brady showed signs of decline last year. And if Cam Newton's fully healthy, I think this offense doesn't get any worse and could potentially get even better.
Yeah, before Martin goes, I just want to say one aspect that I feel like is being overlooked by all the analysts around the world is that I think one of the reasons why Bill Belichick signed Cam Newton is because he's seeing what Baltimore is doing with Lamar Jackson and the zone reads. And I think one of the reasons he signed him was he wants to study that type of zone read, the running thing that Lamar Jackson does, and he could do it with Cam Newton because Cam Newton kind of plays a bit similar to Lamar Jackson in that way. Martin, what's your take, man?
I think, like Ryan said, it's a low risk, high reward type situation. It's only $1 million. So even worst case, if he doesn't even fit in the system, you could still play Jared Stidham and just release Cam or put him as your backup. So it's really Cam Newton's like job to lose. He has everything to gain and everything to lose. And I think he'll perform. I think he'll go 11-5. They'll beat the Bills at least once, and they'll beat the Jets twice. Dolphins 1-1. They'll still win the division though. As for the playoffs, they won't go far. But I think they're not going to tank in any way. Belichick has never tanked, and he won't today.
Oh no, that was never. In my opinion, that was never an option because he doesn't want to give off the image that he needed Tom Brady. He wants to get all the credit for himself. And if he went like 5-11 the first year Tom Brady left, that would just be a terrible look. So the Patriots tanking, in my opinion, was never an option. And I think this signing proves it because I think we can all agree when fully healthy, Cam Newton is probably a top 10 quarterback.
No doubt.
At absolute worst, top 15, but at best top 15, maybe even top 5 if he gets back to playing like he did in 2015.
Yeah, and just one more quick thing I want to say about Cam in this favor. I know a lot of talk is being made of the limitations of the offense. Look at the offenses that Cam Newton played with in Carolina. Maybe one weapon at a time. Just basically league average receivers at best and a lot of time other than Steve Smith, right? And, they had Olsen at the tight end position. So maybe 2 weapons. So, New England's situation isn't much worse if it is at all. And he's taken a team like that to the Super Bowl before in the NFC.
And he's going to have better offensive coaching than he's ever had in South Carolina. Ron Rivera is a great head coach, but he's more defensive. So in terms of offensive head coaching or offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels is going to be way better than anyone he's had.
And Belichick has survived without Brady in the season before with Matt Castle, too. A below-average quarterback. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And now that you mentioned that, I always just find it hilarious how we bring up that year. You say, oh, the Patriots went 11-5. You assume they make the playoffs, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. To this day, I still don't understand how an 11-5 team can't make the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs. That just always amazes me.
Same with the 10-6 team. It's like you have double digits, but you get left out somehow. So it's like it's like you win your division, but you can be like 7-9, and you win your division, you get in the playoffs. So it's
just
like really
little
bizarre.
Side notes. Yeah, just a little side note that I had to bring up because we referenced that one Patriots year. But sorry for that little tangent.
It's all good. I think we can move on to the next topic because I know the next topic is going to take a lot of time. So we're going to react to Colin Cowherd's top 10 AFC quarterback list. I'll read off the list. I see a lot of people shaking their heads. So number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. Number 2 is Lamar Jackson. Number 3 is Deshaun Watson. Number 4 is Ben Roethlisberger. Number 5 is Josh Allen. Number 6 is Cam Newton. Number 7 is Number 7 is Baker Mayfield. Number 8 is Sam Darnold. Number 9 is Philip Rivers. And number 10 is Drew Lock.
That
I want
pause
to hear
right
Isaiah's
there.
take because he's going in at first. Isaiah, go for your take.
I just got to say before I get into my take is that the pause by Trevor when he was like 7, wow, Baker Mayfield, that just needs to shows you everything you need to know about Baker Mayfield. But anyways, so here's my take on Colin Cowherd's list. I made my own list, my own top 10 AFC list, but before I reveal that list, here are my 2 takeaways from Colin Cowherd's list. Me and Colin Cowherd, we very rarely agree on stuff, but I got to agree with him here when he explains the reason why he didn't put Ryan Tannehill on his list. He said it's because y'all are recency biased. I totally agree with him. Every year, there is one quarterback that always has this pop year. I'm going by Colin Cowherd's terms. They always have this one special outlier season, and then they come back to earth. Just look at Matt Ryan in 2016. He had this amazing good year coached by Kyle Shanahan, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, Matt Ryan he's like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And I kept telling everybody, just stop it, man. He is only really good right now because of Kyle Shanahan's amazing coaching scheme. And what happened the next year? Kyle Shanahan leaves for the 49ers, and Matt Ryan immediately comes back to earth. So I totally agree with Colin Cowherd that I don't think Ryan Tannehill should be on that list. It's not because I don't think he's good. It's because I just think he had that one great year. And if you look at his entire career, he's been like pretty average. So that's my first takeaway from it. And my second takeaway from it is that I think Derek Carr should have absolutely been on Colin Cowherd's list. If you look at his numbers, Derek Carr is absolutely a top 10 quarterback. Heck, you can argue with his stats that he's a top 5 quarterback in the AFC. Cowherd said the reason why he didn't put Carr on his list is because Derek Carr's situation is toxic right now in Las Vegas, and he and John Gruden have problems. I think that's totally wrong. Yes, you hear every year of these rumors that Gruden is trying to get rid of Derek Carr and trying to get another quarterback and yada, yada, yada. But those rumors are, I believe, just the media trying to stir stuff up, and there's no substance to it. Every year there's constant rumors that Carr is going to get traded, and yet he's still here. So if you look at their videos also, when they're mic'd up, you can see that Gruden and Carr have a very cordial relationship, and Carr loves being coached by Gruden, and I think Gruden loves coaching Carr. So that's my 2 takeaways from this list. But now on to my list, all right? So number 1, it's obviously Patrick Mahomes. The reason why is because Patrick Mahomes, he's got a cannon of an arm. He's got a great situation to work with in Kansas City, one of the best play callers in the game of football, and Andy Reid. He's got great weapons around him. Everything's great for him. By the way, before I continue any further, my list is based on Colin Cowherd's criteria, which is he's judging the quarterbacks based on their talent and their current situation. So number 2, I was tempted to put Deshaun Watson here over Lamar Jackson, but I got to stick with Lamar Jackson. I know that Deshaun Watson is a far better passer than Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson he might be an equally better runner than Deshaun Jackson. Plus, one of the big reasons that I had to put Lamar over Deshaun is because look at Baltimore's situation compared to Deshaun Watson's situation. Baltimore, they are committed to winning. You know, they've got all the pieces. They are committed to making Lamar Jackson work in the NFL. And if you look at what's going on in Houston, my gosh, that is some hot garbage right there. Bill O'Brien is your GM. He's might as well be the worst GM in the NFL. So that's why I have Lamar at 2 and Watson at 3. At number 4, it's kind of a bit of a surprise. I'm going to go with Phillip Rivers, my guy Trevor's former quarterback for his Chargers, now the new quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I know, like, Phillip Rivers, he's been on the downfall recently, but, man, the guy still has a good arm. The guy, he's very experienced, and I believe that situation in Indianapolis suits him better than in Los Angeles and San Diego. The 5th quarterback that I'm going to put on there is Derek Carr. The reason why is because if you look at his stats, Derek Carr has been one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I believe he's completing like 70% of his passes, and his weapons aren't even that good. So the Raiders can put better weapons around him. Imagine like what he can do with even better weapons. Derek Carr's at 5. Number 6 is one that's going to rile everyone up. It's Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos. Like, you guys might think, like, oh my gosh, Isaiah, you're so crazy for putting Drew Lock.
Yeah, you're right.
You might think,
you're
but
right.
Hey, I'll tell y'all why. It's because Drew Lock played 6 games. In those 6 games, the guy showed me that he had a great arm. He showed me that he can go through his reads properly. He also showed me that he's not afraid to take hits. And also, the guy's a great leader. And also, his situation in Denver, if you look at it, he's got one of the best defensive masterminds in football coaching him as a head coach, Vic Fangio. He's got great weapons around him. You got Jerry Jeudy, who I believe was the steal of the draft. And then Noah Fant, he's like, people said coming out of last year's draft that he was the second coming of
I see the hand.
But
let's let him hear his list, man. I want to hear the whole thing before I get going.
He's got Cortland Sutton. He went to the Pro Bowl, 1,000-yard receiver, pretty good wide receiver corps right there. Running back wise, you got Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay. They've had lots of success in this league, and the offensive line I believe is getting better. So I got Drew Lock at 6. Number 7, I am going to put Big Ben Roethlisberger, because the last time we saw Big Ben before he got hurt, he threw for over 4,000 yards. He's got one of the best head coaches in the game in Mike Tomlin. Got pretty good weapons around him. Number 8, I'm going to go with Cam Newton, even though I said on our last segment about all the question marks that I had about his game. I think with him, Bill Belichick is committed to winning. I think he will be able to turn New England. He'll be able to win in New England. Let's see. Where am I at? Number 9? Yeah, number 9. I'm going to go number 9 is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, he is raw. He's raw. He's got good talent, but right now he's more of a runner than a passer. If he can be a passer, I believe that he can go into the top 5 category of quarterbacks, but his situation is pretty good. They've got one of the best young head coaches in the game in Sean McDermott. Defensively, they are amazing. Offensively, the line is pretty good. Running back-wise, they are solid. Wide receiver-wise, they've got Stephon Diggs, one of the top receivers in the NFL. I think he's going to make a huge impact. And last but not least, I'm going to have to go with Ryan's Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield didn't look that good last year, but he's got a brand-new head coach, a competent head coach. He's got weapons around him. They improved the line. I think Baker Mayfield is number 10. So that's my top 10 list.
Ryan, I see you really antsy about it. Go for it.
I'm going to let Steven give his overall take. I just have to respond to one point, just one on his list, and that is Drew Lock. I left the set earlier, but that wasn't in like rage or anything. I just had to get a physical representation of Isaiah's take for Drew Lock being number 7.
I think I know where this is going.
This is a trash can.
Yep.
This is a trash can for everyone that isn't obvious. It's about accurate. Yep, there's Drew Lock in there.
It's still useful.
Yeah,
it's got a purpose.
I just had to make that quick point because
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a purpose that should be in a top 10 list of any kind. But
I'm just trying to
that's my
help
point.
out my guy.
I'll let
I'm
you
just
go,
trying to help
Steven.
out
I
my
just
guy.
had to quickly.
So we got
But go ahead, Steven.
Steven with the V. Which Steven are we talking about here?
Go.
Yeah.
So we got Stephen Wang right here, man.
That's what's
All
up.
right. Well, yeah, appreciate to be joining the show, guys. I had to go take care of something really quickly, but I'm looking at this top 10 list, and I'm not really going to fight Ryan or any of you guys on it that it is absolutely ridiculous. I don't want to take any spoilers, but I really like Ryan's top 10 list. That's pretty much who I've got in the top 10. I may actually put Deshaun Watson ahead of Lamar Jackson because the feeling for me is if Watson had the talent that the Ravens or the Chiefs had to work with, he could arguably be the best quarterback in the AFC and in the league. We haven't seen the full-fledged potential of Deshaun Watson on a winning and competent organization just yet. But I think it is absolutely ridiculous to have Sam Darnold at number 8, first of all, because we talked about this with Ryan earlier today and with Shree, and there is a case to be made that Sam Darnold is a bottom 3 quarterback in the entire league. We're not talking about the AFC. There's a case to be made that he is the number 29th through number 32 ranked quarterback in the league. So at number 8, I just think Colin Cowherd's a little obsessed with his whole big, trunky coastal little slant and rant. So I think that's just too far. And Drew Lock, like Ryan said, he's got a lot more to prove. To be at number 10, to be ahead of guys like Derek Carr. Martin, I know I harp on your Raiders, but the numbers that Carr puts up consistently year after year have got him put him ahead of Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, and quite frankly, Phillip Rivers at this point. Rivers is old. Last one I'm going to put in is Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is a top 8 quarterback in the AFC because I understand the last full season we saw him play was that season where they barely missed the playoffs. They were kneeling in the stadium hoping for the Ravens to lose. They didn't get it. Roethlisberger passed for over 4,000 yards, passed for a pretty solid high 90s quarterback rating. But let's not forget, the last game we saw him in was against New England, and he was getting absolutely flabbergasted by that defense. And New England had his number that night before he got injured. The Steelers had no answer for that defense. I think Roethlisberger and Rivers are just two guys that are well past their primes and really can't compete anymore at an NFL contention level. So those are pretty much my tripes with the list, and the rest I think is okay to decent. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, number 1, Lamar Jackson, number 2, Watson, number 3, Cam Newton, number 6. You're not going to get a whole lot of people disagreeing with those guys being put where they are.
Yeah, Steven, before I just wanted to rebuttal your point about you placing Watson over Lamar. Colin Cowherd, when he made this list, the criteria he took into consideration was the talent of the quarterback plus the current situation. The reason why I think he placed Lamar over Watson is because I think they're similar in terms of talent. It's just the organization. Like, you can't compare Baltimore to Houston.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're using that as your criteria, the 1, 2, 3 spots are about the only thing that's right with Colin's list. And then maybe Cam Newton, number 6, and Baker Mayfield, number 7.
Martin, do you have a long take or do you have a short take?
About the Colin Cowherd list?
Yeah.
Not very long. I think Tannehill and Carr should both be in there. As for the list itself, 1, 2, 3, not really debatable very much. I don't think Sam Darnold should be in there, though. He has not been good. I don't think he's been very good at all, if any. I mean, he sees ghosts, for crying out loud. I think Sam Darnold is going to be another washout Jets quarterback in a matter of years. And I think you should have put either Tannehill or Carr instead of that spot. As for Baker Mayfield, I don't even think he's a top 10 AFC quarterback either. I mean, you have OBJ, you have Jarvis Landry, you have and David Njoku, and other weapons, and you can't even go positive. It's like last year everyone was all like, Browns are going to make at least positive. Maybe we're saying Super Bowl. That was far cry. But I just don't see it. I really don't see Baker being a good quarterback either. Top 10 quarterback in the AFC? Nope. That's about it for me.
All right. Stephen, what is your take on this?
Yeah, so a couple of points. I'll go ahead and give you guys my list, and I'll address some of the – I've been taking notes, so if you see me looking away, I'm kind of writing down what you guys are saying. It helps me to keep track, right? So when I first saw this top 10 list from Colin Cowherd, I knew that there were going to be some doozies on there, right? He's kind of one of those hot takes artists that has made his living off of his hot takes. So Patrick Mahomes, don't need to give an explanation why he's number one, right? I do like Deshaun Watson over Lamar Jackson, and here's why. I know that you guys are comparing rosters, right? Hayden Hurst, tight end for the Ravens last season, he's not there anymore. He was a big security blanket for Lamar Jackson, and they run those 3 tight end sets. They lose a blocker too, which is key for Lamar Jackson's running success. So losing him, that's a key loss. And Deshaun Watson, yeah, like his team is not – or the front office isn't built for winning, right? They made some dumb moves. They traded, Hopkins for peanuts, but they did get Brandon Cook, so it's not like they left the cupboard bare in Houston. And he's more of a speedy receiver, so that helps him out a little bit. He can release the ball a little bit quicker, and he's still a decent deep threat, so let's not act like Watson's completely out of options in Houston, right? I have Josh Allen, number 4. I think that he's going to improve a lot. I like the addition of Stephon Diggs. Their running game is going to make his job a lot easier, and that defense is going to make his job a lot easier too. And, we can criticize the young man all we want, but, it takes a little bit of time for these guys to get to a star level. So let's give Guy a little bit of leeway, right? I have Cam Newton 5th overall because of the overall coaching that is going to be happening in New England. I like his versatility. I like that he's going to be a big playmaker for their team. Now, I will say that that's pending if he's going to be the full-time starter. If not, then, we'll have to shuffle the deck a little bit. Carr, I think, was a great mention. Isaiah, I think that you brought up a good case for him. He was, second, I think, in completion percentage last season. He's up there in QBR. And can anyone give me a full rundown of the Raiders' offensive talent that they have? I don't think that it's going to be anything earth-shattering, right? So Carr is a great quarterback. Next, I have Ben Roethlisberger. I think that his age does put him a little bit on the decline. I think that he's a guy that benefits from great coaching, right? He's lost key pieces like Bell, like AB. Who knows where he's going to be next season. But I think Roethlisberger, even though at his advanced age, he's still going to be able to do some good things there. I like Rivers next at my 8th spot just because the offensive line is young and aggressive. That's going to help him out a lot. It's going to be a nice change of pace from what we're used to seeing for him in LA. Used to be San Diego, right? Next, I do have Drew Lock. And for the life of me, Colin Cowherd brought up recency bias for Ryan Tannehill. Where is this? What is his excuse again for Locke if we can't talk about Ryan Tannehill and recency bias? I think that that's kind of you're going to kind of die by your own poison there. So I would put Ryan Tannehill actually above Locke at number 9. Isaiah, did you have something?
No, I was just – wait, he had him at 9? I thought he had him at 10.
No, I'm sorry. I had him at 9 at first, but then when I was listening to this take about recency bias, I actually bumped him up. He did have him at 10. At first, I had him at 9, but I went ahead and bumped him out altogether, and I gave Tannehill his spot because if we're talking recency bias, the only reason that Drew Lock's on here is solely because of recency bias. That's the only reason he's on this list, right? And then last but not least, I think Baker Mayfield is the 10th best quarterback on this list. And it's not even that I think that he's a great quarterback, right? If we're talking about quarterbacks and production and things like that, Baker Mayfield and Phillip Rivers were in the top 3 in interceptions thrown this season, or this past season, right? The only person that beat him was Jameis Winston, right? So if Jameis Winston played his true position at defensive back instead of quarterback, you would be talking about Phillip Rivers and Baker Mayfield being 1 and 2 in interceptions, right? So I think, Baker Mayfield takes the 10th spot because he has too many weapons to have. Now this could change because Joku is actually, from what I've been seeing, is requesting a trade out of Cleveland. So I don't know how much to put how much of stock that puts into my evaluation of Mayfield as a quarterback. But I think with guys like Chubb, other receivers and running backs that they have, there's too much talent for him to at least not be 10. Like, you have to royally mess this up to not be a top 10 quarterback in just half of the NFL. If you're Baker Mayfield, you just have to just basically just go out and throw the ball into the ground every play to not be a top 10 quarterback with all those weapons.
That is true.
All right.
And I just wanted to quickly make a point about Njoku. As a Browns fan, I say good riddance. The guy couldn't block, and then he couldn't catch. In like drops, he was like 41st, 41st qualifying tight end. So, yeah, the Browns can get plenty of tight ends that can't block and can't catch a football. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. The Browns signed and drafted his replacement. So if he wants to go somewhere else, he can frustrate another team's fan base. So that's just my quick point on that. But I want to get into my problems with the list. And just looking at it, there's 3 main ones I have. And after I state these, I'll give my top 10 list and what went into my grading of these quarterbacks. So first problem, and we've all made reference to it, is that Ryan Tannehill isn't on the list. And he brought, I'm going to ignore his pop year. Well, yes, let's take that out. And Shree brought this up and would probably be able to explain it better than I could if he was in the chat right now. But if you look at Ryan Tannehill's stats in Miami, a much worse situation than in Denver. And let's keep in mind, Drew Lock played games in Denver with absolutely no pressure. Ryan Tannehill's stats over the course of multiple full seasons were very similar and had either the same or better QBR than Drew Lock's meaningless 5 games. And in those 5 games, Drew Lock had great help because 53.3% of his passing yards came after the catch. That was 7th most in the NFL in that span. And this is just to show why I don't think he's even a top 10 quarterback. And this is a key stat. On throws, 10 yards or more down the field, he graded last according to Pro Football Focus. Dead last. Not great. So, yes, so in summary, you take out Ryan Tannehill's best year, he's still better than Drew Lock's, 5 games and no pressure in a much better situation. So that didn't make sense. And with that same point, Derek Carr's reason for not being on this list was also stupid. It's like, his coach doesn't want him, but that's always been just a media creation. And if Martin was still in the podcast, he could confirm that. But yeah, that's just stupid. But then my second biggest problem with this list is Josh Allen. I do not think Josh Allen is a top 10 quarterback in the AFC, and I'll get into that later. And then at number 8, and then the last one, it's Sam Darnold. My goodness. And here's the worst part. He said that he took rosters into consideration, and he constantly downgrades the Jets roster. That he thinks him in the top 5 if he had a, quote, good roster in Colin Cowherd's opinion. But now that I listed my problems, I'm going to get into my top 10 and get into my problems in a little more detail. So let's see here. So yes, when I went about grading my quarterbacks, I looked at some key stats. What was your grade on third downs? And this is according to Pro Football Focus. Passer rating under pressure when you're being blitzed and in the red zone. In addition, I looked at turnover-worthy plays percentage. You obviously want this to be lower. And I looked at that in red zone, under pressure, and while being blitzed as well. And then these 2 posits, Pro Football Focus does a thing where they grade each play based on a +2 to -2 scale. And this ranks quarterbacks based on the percentage of plays that were graded positive and percentage grades that was percentage plays that was grade negative. Obviously, higher being worse for the negative. So these were the key stats I used in determining my quarterback rankings. And I just want to quickly go into why I dislike the Sam Darnold and Josh Allen placement. First of all, you look at Josh Allen, third down grade. He's 33rd out of 35 qualifying quarterbacks. That's not good. And then below average passer rating when under pressure and being blitzed. He is good in the red zone. That's his one saving grace. But then you look at turnover-worthy play percentage when under pressure and when
the red zone's a pretty
below
good
average.
The red zone's a pretty good spot to be good at, though, right? Like, I don't think we can just downplay the importance of his playmaking ability in the red zone. Right, and he's also fairly young.
Yeah, if only he didn't happily grade him even lower.
Right. But I think Ryan's point is, in terms of all-around performance and his ability to get into the red zone, that is important too.
But he also added Stephon Diggs, and he's improving.
Yes, he's young,
very young.
Right, that is true.
He is very young, but the list I'm going to compile is mainly my rankings of them going into next year. He very easily could climb this list, and I expect him to. But going into next year, I have him ranked 12th, and it's mainly because of the passer rating when under pressure, when being blitzed, just the turnover-worthy play percentage. He did have a good positive grade rates, but being ranked 35th out of 35th in negative grade rates, that just shows me that when under pressure, he gets rattled easily and can make some bad mistakes. And we saw that in the playoff game. So if he can even just get average at these categories I listed, he'd be probably top 8 in the AFC right off the back. So he gets average at those. He's easily top 8, maybe even top 5, as Colin Cowherd put him. But as of right now, I just think he's being a little bit overhyped. But if you do look at potential, I could understand maybe him being higher. But the sin I cannot forgive or even rationalize it in any way, shape, or form is the Sam Darnold being at 8. So let's look at third down grades, shall we? Let's see. He's 32nd. One would say that's not good. Passer rating when under pressure. He is. Let's see, where is he? Oh, he's bottom 4 in that category among the AFC quarterbacks I have listed. And let's go passer rating when being blitzed. Oh, he's dead last in that too. Let's go passer rating in the red zone. Let's see. Second to last. And then top 5 in every single other, or bottom 5. Or bottom 4 in every single other category I have listed as key categories for a quarterback. Out of all the
he's the worst quarterback in the AFC, Ryan. He is a bottom 3 quarterback in the league.
Yes, that's my take. Because out of all the quarterbacks I listed, he is the only quarterback, I repeat this, the only quarterback to grade below average in every single one of these key stats. No other quarterback did that. Every single other quarterback found at least 1, 2, and in most cases 3 or 4, no matter how bad they were, they found those 4 stats they could be above average to average in. Sam Darnold is below average in everything. Now, I know the reason Colin Cowherd would give. He would say, oh, well, the Jets have nothing. The Jets are terrible. Well, that's until you look at time to throw. And when you look at time to throw, he's actually had above average time to throw in the NFL. Guys like Ryan Tannehill and the Dolphins and, guys like that, they don't get that. So he's had above average time to throw. His weapons haven't been atrocious. And even in that situation, you should be above average in something. And that is why when talking about AFC quarterbacks, I have Andy Dalton on this list because no one had a worse situation last year than Andy Dalton. I mean, come on. The Bengals were absolutely terrible. But even then, Andy Dalton was better than him in third down grades, passer rating under pressure, while being blitzed in the red zone, had a lower turnover-worthy play percentage in the red zone, was above average in turnover-worthy plays under pressure, and was average in positive grade rate. So even that's to show that even in the worst possible situation you can be in for a quarterback, you have to find a way to be average or above average in one of these key categories.
I think
Darnold,
though I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I think the one argument you can make for Andy Dalton's case though about being the worst case is that still had AJ Green. Like maybe that's the impact that Green had on Dalton more so than Dalton's ability to because I mean Green is a phenomenal wide receiver. I think anybody would want him on their team. Darnold does not have that level of receiver to throw to bail him out. I'm not saying that Dalton is a tremendous quarterback or anything like that. But I think that those statistics and that worst case scenario might just be Green's ability at receiver more so than anything else.
Oh, I'd agree, but the stats I have pulled up are solely from last year when he did not have Green. I assume his stats be much better the years he had Green, but these are simply the games he participated in last year when Green was hurt the entire time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So he didn't even have Green to help him out. So, yes, Stephen said it, and it's absolutely true. Sam Darnold is the worst quarterback in the AFC. He is bad in every single one of these key stats. Yes, he can throw a pretty pass when the pocket's clean. What I look for in a quarterback is when the play's not absolutely perfect or, when there's pressure, how good are you? Also, how good are you at reading the blitz, identifying where it's coming from, and finding the open guy? And how good are you in the red zone, which to the point earlier, that's not solely due to him being a young quarterback because, as Stephen pointed out, Josh Allen is good in that category, and he's a young quarterback as well. So, yeah, I cannot stand the hype for Sam Darnold, and I think it's just Colin Cowherd. I think most people realize that Sam Darnold's not going to be this amazing talent, but Colin Cowherd can't let go. I mean, for goodness sake, Colin Cowherd, after Sam Darnold's pro day, was praising the man. It's like, oh, he had a pro day in the rain. It's the greatest pro day I've ever seen. Like, what do you mean greatest pro day you've ever seen? It's throwing a football with no defenders on the field. Yes, there's a little bit of rain. So what? But
Ryan, that reminds me of my fellow Chinese guy, Li Jianlian, when he was doing a scouting workout in the NBA draft. He literally posted a workout in front of NBA scouts of him scoring over a chair. I mean, literally, the guy was scoring over a chair
workout.
And I would argue, Stephen, that was a more impressive outing than what Ryan just mentioned, because throwing in the rain with nobody guarding you, that is less of a defender than a chair.
I mean, yeah. I mean, a chair. I mean, how many people have fallen out of chairs or tripped over chairs in their life? I know I have. I've never, had the rain beat me up before. So, I mean, if I had to pick one or the other, I would rather face the rain than a chair. But
100%.
All right, I'll give
All
my
right, should we get into Trevor's take?
Yeah, I'll keep my...
I'm not gonna. I just want to quickly give my top 10. I've spent enough time, so I won't give a ton of reason. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. We don't need any reasoning why, but if you do, they were above average in every single category I listed, and that appears on the screen. Number 3, Lamar Watson for obvious reasons. Number 4, Ryan Tannehill. And look what happened. He graded just absolutely incredible in some of these stats, like passer rating when blitz, passer rating under pressure. He just did phenomenal. And positive grade rate, etc. Derek Carr, mainly because I just looked at his numbers, and I didn't like Derek Carr before I did my research, but look at that passer rating when blitzed, under pressure, third down grade, in the red zone. He's just an all-around great quarterback. Very few weaknesses in terms of these categories, so has to be at 5. Cam Newton at 6. Phillip Rivers at 7. Yes, he's old, but he still had above average average passer rating when under pressure and blitzed.
Top
Turnovers are a bit of a problem, but overall average and positive grade. That is true, but in terms of positive grade and negative grade outside those turnovers, not bad. So I'll still give him top 7, especially because he's on the Colts, and the Colts have just phenomenal talent, and they'll better utilize him, in my opinion. Number 8, Tyrod Taylor, and I say this because you look at the 3 seasons Tyrod Taylor was a starter in Buffalo. PFF graded him 9th, 14th, and 13th. That's pretty good. So I'm going to rank him above the rest of the pack, who I have serious question marks. Number 9, I have Baker Mayfield, and that's mostly because I love his passer rating when under pressure, or not under pressure, passer rating when blitzed. It is above average, and considering he had just the worst play calling and worst head coaching you could possibly imagine, I'll give him a pass for that. Number 10, Gardner Minshew. Number 11, Big Ben. Big Ben is so low because, 1, the major injury. 2, I don't think he's been a workout warrior. That's never been his, never been his calling card. So I don't think he'll recover well from it.
Shave off the beard, though.
That's true, but that's the only good thing he has going for him. But even in his last season of play, the stats I'm bringing up being 2018, just look at his stats in these key categories. Below average in so many of them. Literally only above average against the blitz. And that's good. Shows he's a mature quarterback that can diagnose the blitz, but given the injury, I have to rank him this low. Number 12, Josh Allen. 13, Ryan Fitzpatrick. 14, Drew Lock, because, come on, it's only 4 games, and he's had, major help, as I've listed earlier. Then 15, I have Joe Burrow. I didn't want to include him on this list just simply because I haven't seen him play, but I have so little faith in Sam Darnold that Joe Burrow just has to be better. That's my take on that. But, yeah, 15, Joe Burrow, 16, Sam Darnold, and I've given enough reasons why that's the case. So, Trevor, I apologize, but it's finally your turn. I've taken up too much time.
Hey, before we get into Trevor's take, Ryan, do you mind turning off the screen share? I actually have Colin's list pulled up for Trevor to watch. And then the other thing, Ryan, I wanted to say is maybe you should go shave your beard like Big Ben did, and you can secure yourself a max contract. All right, let's get into Trevor's take now.
So looking at the top 10 that we see here, I am satisfied with the top 3. It's fair, it's reasonable. It makes sense. They're the top in their respective leagues. That's fine. The 4th spot onwards is just a train wreck. Come on, Big Ben coming back from injury, he's not going to be the same as what you think he's going to be. So I would probably argue he could be in the 8th spot. Just, a potential of he could digress a whole lot and doesn't really improve, and the Steelers are forced to, get a quarterback in the draft next year, or he could do decent and get an 8-8 season but miss the playoffs. So that's what you're looking at with Big Ben. Josh Allen sitting at 5, I kind of want to bump him down to 6, maybe 7, because it was the playoff game that really, really turned me off on that. If he did decent and didn't screw up in that overtime, actually pulled it out, I could say, you're right, you can put him at 5. But seeing that performance, him not being awareness of the clock really hurted him in that game. If he knew what he had to do and had that awareness, I can say you can put him top 5 because of that. But besides that, he didn't have that there. 6, Cam Newton, I respect it. He's coming back from injury. We're going to see what a super Cam could be, an MVP type of player. So he still has young and potential energy to bounce back up and rebound. So the 6th spot is perfect. Baker Mayfield at 7, that is really tough. I'd rather pick Derek Carr in that spot just because the Raiders had a good season and just Derek Carr has been consistent with the Las Vegas Raiders now. Sam Darnold, get him out of this list. He's trash. Get him out. I know he was sick and he had a bad year. Just get him out of the list. Maybe 2 years or 3 years down the line, you can try to bring him back in the conversation, but he needs to be out. Phillip Rivers at 9. I would probably put Ben Roethlisberger in that spot and move Philip Rivers to 10. Because Philip Rivers, yes, he has T.Y. Hilton and has all that spot around him, but it's that young offensive line with the Colts. And it's like he could get frustrated, have a lot of pressure on him in the quarterback, make bad decisions, but he can lead a comeback drive when necessary and make a comeback. We've seen him do against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. In the last second drive, he ends up pulling off. So he's a top 10 quarterback in this aspect of it. And he went from a 12-4 season to like a 5-11 season. So like he had a huge tank and decrease, but I can see him bouncing back up and going like 7-9 with the Colts, slightly missing the playoffs, but like it's a respectable way for him to end out his career.
Yeah, man.
All right, so
I still think y'all are hating on Allen for being young, man. Like, the playoff experience is good for his career, man. Like, the fact that he was even in the playoffs is a huge thing for him.
But if you look at other quarterbacks who had their rookie year in the playoff or their first time at it, they did a lot better than screwing up and throwing away a game like that.
Yeah, that's why they're top 3 on the list.
That is true, but it's like, come on. Like, you're a quarterback and you got in there. You are a contender for a reason. You can't be making those silly mistakes in the playoffs. Because if you're trying to win a playoff game, you have to be clean and crisp. Like, look at Lamar Jackson when he faced Philip Rivers the first time. It wasn't pretty, but he was able to compete with Philip Rivers. That's what you need to do in those games. Even though he didn't pull it out, it was still a lot cleaner than Josh Allen's playoff performance.
That's true. We'll see how Diggs helps him out, though, man. I'm interested to see that.
Oh, he's going to be amazing. I'm a Vikings fan, avid Vikings fan, and Diggs is a game changer. I mean, this guy made Case Keenum look like a borderline max contract. You don't need to tell me twice about what Diggs can do out there on the field. Anyway, Trevor, are we ready to get into our NBA topic?
Yep, our NBA topic is the retirement of Vince Carter. The topics, the 2 questions that we have are, what will you remember Vince Carter for, what he's done over the years, and is he a Hall of Famer? This group, we had a discussion about, is he a Hall of Famer? There's some wild hot takes by some of our group members, but I want to hear Ryan's take, and then we'll bounce to Isaiah, because they've been going at it, and Stephen as well.
I'm going to keep this nice and short. The answer to the question of will he be a Hall of Famer? Yes, absolutely. The man's an 8-time All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA player, average almost 17 points for his career, and that's including the years where he was almost a bench warmer into his late 40s. So, yeah, the man's a Hall of Famer. He had some incredible years. Isaiah's going to say he choked in the playoffs, but if you look at the playoff numbers and the more advanced metrics, outside of Allen Iverson's one year where he made the finals, he compares pretty darn well to him. So that narrative is false in my opinion. So, yeah, Hall of Famer, and he will be remembered for more than his dunks. I know Isaiah's going to say, oh, he's only going to be remembered for the dunk contest. And I just have to say, this man deserves more respect than that. He's a Hall of Famer. Isaiah just admitted he's a Hall of Famer.
Isaiah,
I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I just don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. If Yao Ming can get into the Hall of Fame because he pioneered basketball to the international world, of course Vince Carter is going to get in because he revolutionized the dunk contest. So, by the way, before I go any further, first of all, I just want to say congratulations to Vince Carter on an amazing 23-year career. Secondly, about his legacy. For me, Vince Carter will forever be known in my book as an amazing dunker and a freakish athlete. He is honestly kind of what Aaron Gordon is striving to be right now. Unfortunately, I never got to watch Vince Carter play when he was at peak stardom with the Raptors. I started watching and following the NBA in the 08-09 season when Vince was playing for the Magic and was already breaking down. He just wasn't the same. However, I did watch a lot of old footage of Vince Carter at his peak with the Raptors and the Nets to know that he was super talented. Vince Carter had all the talents in the world to be the GOAT. But in terms of his overall legacy, I got to agree with what Stephen A. Smith said on First Take a week ago, and that is Vince Carter had all the talent in the world, but there's just something missing, and that is playoff success. He was a great regular season player, but he just couldn't put it together when it counted the most. He could have been our generation's Michael Jordan. In fact, when him and Kobe got drafted, some people were billing them as our generation's Magic versus Bird. But Carter never really lived up to his potential because of his injuries, which really sapped him of his athleticism, and also because the management of the teams that he played for never really cared about winning. They didn't put the best team around Carter for him to succeed. So, yeah, in conclusion, Vince Carter had a good career, but it wasn't the legendary career that he was destined for.
Yeah, I'm going to have to completely agree with Isaiah here. And I will take it one step further. Not only will Vince Carter be remembered as somebody who underperformed relative to his talent, he will be remembered more so for that than his dunking. And I'll explain why. I will explain. In the NBA, when it comes to superstars, we really have two classes of superstars. We have the 1A superstars who we just flat out expect these guys. These guys are the chosen one to go out there, carry their teams to finals runs and championships. Giannis Antetokounmpo belongs in that discussion. We'll see if he's there. LeBron James absolutely is in there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, all of these top-tier players. Steph Curry as well, and Kevin Durant. Then you have your 1B players, these superstars that you don't quite know if they can put a team on their back in either the Eastern or Western Conference and make them compete for championships, like Russell Westbrook, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter's in there as well. And Vince Carter as a 1B superstar, I know it's kind of unfair to compare him to Michael Jordan. We had this craze where every person who was under 6'8" and above 6 feet and could shoot the ball slightly, could play some defense, automatically compared to Michael Jordan. So it's a little bit unfair. I understand that. But when you look at the 1B superstars, you look at guys like Carmelo Anthony, Tracy McGrady. Yeah. With those guys, you know, what's talked about most for them, even though they're not on the level of LeBron, it's that they couldn't get the deal done. They couldn't even get into the finals, win a championship. And so Vince Carter has that burden to carry because talent-wise, we know he's not LeBron James. We know he's not necessarily Michael Jordan or Kobe, right? But he's absolutely a 1B superstar in his peak, and he did not achieve the title aspirations that people set out there for him. And so now he's in the same kind of conversations that Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, and unfortunately Tracy McGrady are now in their careers.
Allen Iverson too.
Allen Iverson to a certain degree, but I think Allen Iverson is kind of in between that 1A and that 1B superstardom. And my last point is that I think Vince Carter's longevity may actually go out to hurt his legacy and hurt people's memory of him. And the reason is this. In Vince Carter's prime, he put up about 22 to 23 points a game on about 37% shooting, 44%, 45% field goal percentage. Pretty respectable numbers, especially for the early 2000s. But in his later career, he was putting up numbers in the single digits. And in this age of social media, in this age of an increasing population of domestic and international basketball fandom, what is being broadcasted more and more is the later part of his career. What's being remembered more and more is the later generation of his career, the stuff he did after the 2010s. And that goes to saturate away some of the 1B superstardom he had in the mid to early 2000s.
Steven?
I have to disagree with that.
All right.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. I have to disagree with that because, yes, he didn't look great in his later years, but people aren't going to be like, oh, he doesn't look amazing now. He must have always been this way. No, they'll say, who's this player? They'll do research like we all have and see how great he was. I don't think it doesn't help or hurt his legacy to play as late as late as he did.
Ryan, even if I give you that, right? Let's say I give you that and people remember his superstar days. Bottom line, he's in that class with Carmelo Anthony, McGrady, Westbrook, all those other wonder stars, and he wasn't able to get that title run through. He couldn't even make it into the NBA Finals in the Eastern Conference. And we know how traditionally weaker the Eastern Conference is than the Western Conference.
And even if that's the case, I think a guy that can average over 20 points a game from the age of 23 to
That's a
32,
lot of people
except
nowadays.
1 year because of injury, that it's not as many as you think. To be able to average over 20 points a game for every single season except one, which he was injured 20 games in, I'll take that. Just because you're not Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant doesn't mean your career's a disappointment. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll leave it up to the other guys on the panel to respond.
All right, Stephen, take it away.
All right, yeah. I enjoyed listening to you guys talk about this. Y'all are making me feel old. So how old were you guys when y'all started following the NBA?
2006.
I started following in the 04 to 05 season when they had the 7-game series between Yao Ming and the Houston Rockets and the Dallas Mavericks. And so that was when I was about 7 years old.
Okay. Yeah, I started following in 99. That's when I really started loving sports. So yeah, y'all make me feel a little old. I just turned 30 this year. So yeah, feeling a little
Still
old.
young.
No, I appreciate that. But all right, let me give you guys a little information, right? So y'all will see this when my website, allaspectsports.com, launches. I did a response to the 74 greatest players all time in the NBA to answer, ESPN's list that they put together. And just to give you guys a little clue, I did over 100 players evaluated. I didn't just pick who I thought were, I basically compiled a list, and it didn't necessarily have to do with who I would think would win one-on-one. It basically took career accolades and where they rank all time in scoring and stuff like that. Like basically, I tried to just file all of that down into one ranking system. I have Vince Carter 80th overall in NBA history. He was one of the more perplexing guys that I placed here. I mentioned, I don't know who it was earlier. It may have been an honest mistake, but when Vince Carter was with the Nets, he did make the finals twice. He appeared in the finals 2 times in his career. That was with Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, Kerry Kittles, Keith Van Horn, all those guys, right? Like,
okay, I stand corrected on that point.
Yeah, so he made the finals twice. So, but I mean, he to your credit, right? He's not setting the world on fire in the amount of time. Like he's not LeBron James, right? Like nobody is, right?
Yeah.
But so on top of that, right, he made 2 All-NBA teams, never been a first team. It was only a second and a third team. 8-time All-Star, right? Career ranking-wise, he ranks 19th in scoring all time. He ranks 72nd in assists all time, 136 in rebounds at his position. That's not just at his position. That's everybody to ever rebound a basketball. He is 136. And if you think back to how many players in the NBA played, it's pretty impressive, right? Steals. He's
especially
never really,
for his size.
Exactly. But, his athleticism helps him out a lot with that, right? So, all right. So never really known as a defender, right? 42nd all time in steals recorded, and block shots 122nd, right? And then if you look at where he ranks 3-point percentage career-wise, 6th all time. So he's a very perplexing case because he had all the tools and athleticism to be one of the best guys, right? But he was never the best player on his team ever, except maybe in his Toronto days. But you look at career-wise, Tracy McGrady, I have him 81st. So, I mean, those are basically the same guys. It's funny
both 1B type guys.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're cousins, right? Like that they both end up being pretty close together in career positioning. So Vince Carter, I don't even consider him 1B. Even at his best, at his absolute best, sure, 1B. But if you look at career average, he's a good second, third banana on a championship team. Now, I heard somebody else mention that he never went to teams that were contending. That's not true either, right? Because we had the New Jersey Nets. We saw make 2 finals appearances. Obviously, they were trying hard, right? The year he went to Orlando, does anybody remember Dwight Howard carrying a bad Orlando team
Superman.
to the finals, right? He went to the team after that finals run, so obviously they're competing. The Dallas Mavericks, after they were trying to go to get some NBA championships, right? He went to that team. He went to Phoenix Suns when they were good. So he went to a bunch of teams that were trying. He was never just the type of player to get the team to the finish line. He could get a team over the hill. He could get the team competent. He could get the team in skill and ability. And he was never a bad player. Even in Atlanta, he's not playing a lot, but when he is, he looks like still a really good player, right? He's just never the guy to carry a team to the finish line. Now, if you talk to people who cover the league extensively, they'll have nothing but nice things to say about Vince Carter. They always say he's one of the nicest guys in the world. Whether or not you think that's important to a player's mentality, we think of guys like, Michael Jordan, obviously, Kobe Bryant. Those guys were considered to be jerks by a lot of their teammates, right? They have success. You have a guy like LeBron James, who the media puts out this image of him being a big team guy, but you watch him on the court and you watch him talk to his teammates. He has the ability to get into his guys when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You never really saw that out of Vince Carter. He always had it's okay, we'll get it next time mentality. Whether or not you think that's important, sure, that's an intangible thing. That's nothing that you can correlate, that you can quantify, that you can boil down into one statistic. But if you watch Vince Carter throughout his career, which he played a long time, right? The only player to play in 4 separate decades, which is a huge accomplishment. He never really got into his teammates. And asking if he's a Hall of Famer, remember, it's not just the NBA Hall of Fame, right? It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So this includes high school, this includes college, this includes Olympics, this includes the WNBA, this includes coaches, reporters, play-by-play analysis. Everybody that has anything to do with basketball can find their way in here. So if you just look at Vince's NBA career, you can be on the fence. But if you look at the Olympics, I mean, the nastiest dunk ever recorded happened in the Olympics, and it was Vince Carter, right? The slam dunk competition is kind of a novelty, right? But it's part of the game. So it's part of the entire, compilation of the NBA, and he's the king of that event. He's 6th all-time in three-point career percentages. He's a top 20 scorer all-time. He's the top 50 in steals all-time. He's over 150th in blocks and rebounds as a 6'6" guard. He's like the top 80th in assists. These are all things that bode well for his favor. I think people ultimately will be disappointed that he didn't live up to his extreme potential, but ultimately Vince Carter is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You combine the dunking and the Olympics, great points. I mean, even though I think that he will be remembered more for his letdowns than his dunk in his Olympic career, those things still happen, Stephen, and they are very much valid as far as your NBA career, your basketball career, it is the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I think even based on what he did in the NBA, it's enough. But I want to go back to one of your earlier points and one of my earlier points, which is about him, not necessarily being able to get it done on contending teams. They weren't super teams, but contending teams. I do think that Vince Carter's career and his outlook falls victim to the times. And what I mean is, when Vince Carter started playing basketball, shooting guards and wing players were under immense pressure to live under the wing of Michael Jordan, no pun intended. And we're seeing that nowadays with people coming after LeBron. Giannis Antetokounmpo, my gosh, if he doesn't win a ring in his career, can you imagine kind of outflow of hate that would come, right? And then I think one guy who compares very favorably to Vince Carter in terms of where he could finish off is Luka Doncic. Right now we look at how high potential he is and how many moves and skill sets he has. He has everything, Stephen, the three-point game, the handles, the passing ability, the basketball IQ. But, when you're compared to LeBron James and you're compared to these type of contemporaries, it is very possible to fall victim to the times and underperform, because power forwards and centers in the early 2000s and right now, they're not under the same kind of pressure that Vince Carter and Luka Doncic are.
Yeah, those are fair points. I don't know if I would necessarily compare Luka to say a Vince Carter. I think Luka and Harden are probably like of the same mold. I don't know if we've necessarily seen players recently that you can classify them under. If I was to compare one player in today's NBA, I heard Aaron Gordon mentioned earlier. I think the dunking is probably the only thing that you can connect the dots between those two on, and they're both phenomenal dunkers. But in all honesty, if I was to compare a player in the NBA today to Vince Carter, it would be Zach LaVine of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah,
Because
drafted by my Timberwolves.
Yeah, because you can see all the physical tools that he has. He's an artist in the air. He can shoot threes. He can pass the ball a little bit. A lot of the offense comes easy to him, right? But you don't see him as a one alpha, first of all, which you didn't see that out of Vince Carter, even at his best. I just think that Zach LaVine and Vince Carter are kind of cut from the same cloth because neither one of them are just killers on the court. They both have all the athletic ability. They all have the physical tools. They're just not the guy to get you there. They can do a little bit of everything offensively, defensively. I mentioned Vince Carter being 42nd overall. You have to remember, too, when steals were an official NBA stat, a lot of the all-time greats that played before that happened in the 80s, you have to kind of wonder where those guys would fit in. So there's some figuring out you have to do there. But ultimately, his 22 years, I heard one of you guys, Stephen, I think it was you that said that might come back to haunt him. Ultimately, I think that helps his career rankings, which is a big part of the Basketball Hall of Fame. I think that helps him too, as far as, being the only player to play in 4 separate decades. And basically it helps his perception too, right? One of the greatest transitions ever from a superstar to a role player, he made it just look flawless. You didn't see him butting heads with the team. You didn't see him saying, I demand to be a bigger part of the offense or a bigger part of the team. He was happy wherever he wanted to go or wherever he went. And in a way, he kind of chased rings, but he didn't do it in an obvious manner where you see guys like David West or, maybe even a Rajon Rondo today. He didn't do it in an obvious and aggressive manner. So I think that his personality helps him out a lot in this situation too.
Yeah, I was going more along the lines that his later years diluted away some of the great averages he had from the 22 to 32 age range that Ryan alluded to, where he was averaging over 20. But I could totally see where you show versatility and involvement in your game. Something that one of the names I mentioned and compared him to legacy-wise, Carmelo Anthony, didn't. Definitely helps to solidify your case in that manner. I will say this, though, before I move on to Ryan and Trevor and Isaiah, if they want to get their rebuttals, I would say Damian Lillard right now has already proven and has already shown to have a better career than Vince Carter. I'll take Damian Lillard's career over Vince Carter's.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that if he had a 1B like a Vince Carter with a Damian Lillard, you're in the Western Conference Finals almost every year, no doubt. Dame is a killer. Dame is a killer.
Yeah, I just have one last thing to add to this topic, and it goes back to your point of him playing longer and that hurting his career. I have an additional point that I forgot to mention earlier, why that's false, in my opinion, and that's because fans like me will look at how long he's played and think, wow, this guy just absolutely loves the game of basketball. And he'll become like a fan favorite just because like how long he's played. The man's played NBA basketball more years than he's not played NBA basketball. It's like little stats like that will make him like a fan favorite, and then will in turn maybe view his career more favorably. Because I'm going to admit, I love Vince Carter, and maybe that's why I'm not one to criticize him as much as you guys. And part of that is because just how long he played. I admire the man for his love of the game and just how long he's been doing it. So, honestly, him playing longer will probably win over more people like me and view his career in a much more positive light.
Trevor, what do you think, man?
I think like Vince Carter has like a phenomenal legacy that people will remember, because I remember playing NBA Live 06. That was my first NBA game. Him being on the court, and it was annoying to like steal the ball from him. And if he had an open drive to the lane, he would do a crazy dunk. He'd be like, I just blew it. I just gave an open giveaway. So it's like one of those things like
insanity.
it was like that. But like you guys said, it was tough for him to win a ring. Like no matter where he ended up, like being in the Eastern Conference, he still had to go against Iverson. So like that may be his first round. If he got through that, he could end up going against Boston and that Celtics team against the Fab Five or Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen had to go through that. Even if he cleared that, then he had to face LeBron James. And like even like as he got through it, it was like tougher and tougher, and there was more chances of you being worn out or getting injured through that process. And once you got to the top, you had to face Kobe Bryant or you had to face the Spurs. So it's like no matter what you ended up doing, you ended up playing like almost a 28 game playoff just to get through it, to win one ring. If he won 2 rings out of that, you could say you've been the best player in the 2000 era. You could say that in that argument, playing against all those elite talents and all those future Hall of Famers, but he didn't do that. You can't knock him down. It's like, oh, he didn't win a ring because of that. It can't always be about winning rings, always about being finals MVP. You can be a team player and build up around being on a championship team and getting close to the finals and even getting in there. That's enough to be a Hall of Famer almost to that aspect. And it's just like one of those things. Like if you look at other players like CP3, he will probably be one day in the Hall of Fame. Russell Westbrook, if he doesn't get a ring, he will get into the Hall of Fame as well. So it's like you can't rule them out because they can't get to the NBA championships. It's not their fault that other teams or super teams form. They can't control that. They could try to go to those teams, but like their salary cap, if you go there, it might tarnish your legacy. It's like, oh, you went there because you're chasing a ring versus like I went to this team to form it, or like you're right there. Like another good example is like the Indiana Pacers against the Miami Heat. They were a team that was destined to could win a ring, but just couldn't get it past the Miami Heat. You can't knock them down because of it, because that super team was just too good to beat. Even though it's like you just have, there's more aspects to being a Hall of Famer than just trying to win a ring after that.
Yeah, as far as beating and joining super teams, it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you join it and you win it, well, your ring's kind of invalidated. If you don't join it and you lose a super team, well, you didn't get a ring. I understand that part of it. But, Trevor, my biggest rebut to that is Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook have never been compared to Michael Jordan. And it's not Vince Carter's fault that he was compared to Michael Jordan and Kobe. But once you draw that burden of expectations, once you draw that comparison, anything you do short of an NBA title or an NBA Finals MVP is a disappointment.
I don't know. CP3 was compared to Magic Johnson a lot during his early years of his career. And John Stockton, for that matter.
More John Stockton, yeah.
Yeah, I was hearing more Magic, honestly, but could just be different sources we were listening to at the time. But, yeah, I mean, so let's not act like CP3 was not compared to some absolute greats.
Yeah, and it's not just the rings either, though. Like, the NBA is pretty fair in acknowledging your talents on all NBA teams, all-star teams. I mean, Vince Carter was named all-star teams. He was never an all-NBA first-team guy. And you can look at the list of shooting guards that were around during that time. You had guys like AI, T-Mac, Kobe Bryant. But after that, Vince Carter, he's like, the fact that he didn't even get one season where he was, a first team all NBA with 2 guard spots available for him to have. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? And
great point.
He did. It was one of those things I mentioned earlier. He chased rings, but he did it in a less aggressive manner, right? He never went to a super team. I mentioned that, he was with the Nets, went to 2 Eastern Conference. He was the Eastern Conference representative there twice. He went to Orlando after Dwight Howard carried that Magic team to the finals. Didn't make it happen. He went to Phoenix while they were still good. Didn't make it happen. He went to Dallas while they were still in the playoffs and looking to get another ring after their run against Miami. Didn't make it happen. It's just one of those things where I think his personality, in all honesty, the fact that he's such a likable guy, that really benefits him in that aspect. He's not like your Kevin Durant. He doesn't make burner accounts and try to talk about how great he is on a fake profile, right? Even though Kevin Durant's one of the greatest talents to ever lace him up, he gets talked bad about because he went to a team that beats him, whether or not you think that's fair. And, he doesn't really have the most lovable personality like a Vince Carter. So it's a double-edged sword where his personality may have hurt him on the court, but I think in terms of how he's going to be remembered overall for his contributions to the game, his personality is almost as big of a factor as his talent that's going to get him into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
And I love that take. That is an amazing take that we can, wrap up on. But let's get to the Arkansas Razorbacks topic, because I know Isaiah has been dying to give his take on this. Trevor, why don't you introduce the question to us?
All right. The question is, will Sam Pittman restructure the Arkansas football team? Isaiah, you've been asking me to let you have this take first. Go at it, my friend.
All right. So first of all, before I answer the question, I got to say, Stephen, I feel so sorry for you that you had to witness those horrifying things on the football field every Saturday in Fayetteville. Nobody should ever have to go through what you and the many Arkansas Razorback fans went through the last 2 to 3 years. Our Browns aficionado here on this show, Ryan, has been constantly complaining about the bad football that he's had to witness with his Browns the last several years. Ryan, I'm here to tell you that the crap that Arkansas Razorback fans had to see the last 2 years, I mean, you guys lost to 2 or 3 teams that were way below your level. Arkansas lost to San Jose State, they lost to North Texas, and they lost to Western Kentucky. The 0-16 Cleveland Browns, yes, they lost all their games, but they lost to teams that were on their level. They lost to NFL teams. Arkansas lost to 3 teams that were far down below their level. So, Ryan, I'm sorry, man, but I gotta say, man, Stephen has witnessed the worst football ever. And also, I got to throw you guys some stats about just how bad the Arkansas Razorbacks football program has been the last 2 years. Chad Morris should never be allowed to coach a Power 5 program ever again. The man was a complete disgrace. So in the 2 years of the Morris era, Arkansas went 4-18, 0-14 in the SEC. They had 33 players transfer out of the program in 2 years. They were outscored a combined 779 to 483 in 2 seasons. Their offense, which Chad Morris is supposedly known for since he was the offensive coordinator at Clemson when Clemson had that high-powered offense, and he was the head coach of SMU when SMU had one of the best offenses in the country. That offense that Chad Morris promised at his introductory press conference would be high-powered and very explosive and very exciting to watch, averaged 335.7 yards per game, which is ranked 119th in the nation, and only put up 21 points per game. And on defense, they allowed 35 points per game. And I'm not trying to rub salt into your wound, Stephen, but according to an anonymous coach from the SEC, he thought that Arkansas's defense and offense was very vanilla, and they were the worst looking team on film in the SEC and also in the entire Power 5. That is a direct quote from an anonymous SEC coach. Ouch. That just shows you how terrible of a coach Chad Morris was, and I'm glad that the Arkansas administration pulled the plug on his tenure only 2 years in. Anyways, as far as your question is concerned, I believe that Sam Pittman will have success at Arkansas, primarily because Arkansas right now is at rock bottom and they have no place to go but up. If they win 3, 4, 5 games this year, it will be considered a major success, considering the fact that Chad Morris left this program in complete shambles.
Yeah, I found myself rooting for you, Isaiah, and I don't know why, because I guess it was just the fact that, like, you were like, no one could be more upset than Steven. So I was like, yeah, no one could be more upset than me. Then you're running down all these numbers. I'm like, why am I happy right now? Like, there's nothing to be proud of in all honesty. But I will tell you, I'm going to start with this. First, and I say if, in a strong form, if Arkansas ever comes back, no one can ever say that I'm a bandwagon fan ever, right? So to answer,
we are here to witness that.
Oh yeah, like document this right now. No, to answer the question, right? What do you mean by resurrect, right? Like, I think if if we're looking at, will he resurrect the Razorbacks? Are we talking about to another team that gets into an okay, bowl game every once in a while? I mean, Arkansas hasn't been great football-wise since, Darren McFadden, Matt Jones, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis. You guys remember when Ryan, I'm sure you do, right? Being a Browns fan, remember when he was on the Madden cover? I mean, that was kind of crazy. Like, even an Arkansas fan like myself, I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. But, it was we had a lot of good talent. Marcus Monk was another one of those guys. Malik Monks, who's in the NBA, it's his older brother, right? He was on the fence about committing to Arkansas, but ultimately went to Kentucky. Can't really blame him. But will he resurrect the Arkansas football team? Let's talk a little bit about Pittman here, right? He coached a little bit at Arkansas, so he's familiar with the football, program. He's familiar with, the boosters and everyone who's in charge down there. He knows what the fans go through, and he went to Georgia, right? So he stayed in the SEC. His calling card is building a talented offensive line. So many of his prospects have gone on to the draft. One of them right now, the right tackle, the name's escaping me, out of Georgia.
Isaiah Wilson. He's
projected to be the number one at his position right now. Now, the question is since you have Pittman now coming over to Arkansas, was it the fact that Pittman was there that those players went, or was it because it's, one of the best SEC schools in SEC history that they went there? So that's what Pittman is going to have to prove. He's going to have to prove that recruiting success that he's had at Georgia, that it's not just the name Georgia that the players are committing to, right? It's the idea that behind Pittman, that these offensive linemen, and with that, there's going to be running backs, right? There's going to be quarterbacks that may want to go behind and play behind these offensive lines that he's known to build. Arkansas has always had a good running game, right? Like, even with Morris and that wide open spread offense that I knew was never going to fly in the SEC. There's a reason why no one does it. Nobody plays that way in the SEC. It's because in the SEC, the way that you get to the top is by running the ball up people's throats and just killing people on defense. That's it. You can try all you want to have these cute offenses. We've seen Missouri even experience this. It's never carried them over the top either in Missouri. Whenever they came to the SEC, they haven't had much promise doing that, right? So Pittman understands what it takes to play SEC football. He's doing it at a very elite level in Georgia. And, hopefully just his name brand transfers over to Arkansas, where Arkansas really only gets their commitments in state. We never really get a lot of big name prospects from, the big states like a Virginia, like a Florida, like a Texas or a California. We get them from mainly Arkansas, mainly from Texas, and a few other places. And that's mainly where our pipeline lines. So is he going to resurrect Arkansas? He's not going to make us a top 5 team. He's not going to, maybe not even a top 25, but like you said, Isaiah, it can be worse than Morris. I mean, the bar is so low.
I gotta say one thing before Ryan and Trevor and Stephen Wang goes, and two things actually. Number one, I think Chad Morris is the worst coach in all of football. I think what I saw with watching Arkansas games, because I watch the SEC. I'm a Georgia fan, so I watched the SEC, and my gosh, Arkansas was getting pushed around like a little boy. It was just so sad to watch. Chad Morris, Ryan, I'm sorry for saying this, might be even worse than Freddie Kitchen, but also. Second point I have to make is that I need to apologize for writing that question. I kind of worded it wrong. What I was trying to say is, would Sam Pittman bring Arkansas back to like a respectable program?
Well, if that's the question, I think it's possible. I mean, it's so hard right now with the way, because the team has been recruited to play a particular system, right? Obviously, Pittman isn't going to be playing the same system as Morris, so he's going to have to be given at least a year or two grace period to try to recruit the type of offense and the type of defense that it takes to compete in the SEC. Now, if the athletic director is patient enough to wait and give him a chance to recruit those types of players, obviously there's a chance. Georgia is a proven system, and if you can bring that over to the other side of the SEC, who knows? I think that we might be able to get back to the early 2000s level, but I don't think that we're going to be particularly a powerhouse, at least for the next maybe 4 or 5 seasons.
I think there's an easy answer to this. And I think when I hear the question, is it possible to resurrect a program? I think you got to have higher standards than like 5 to 7 wins, like just, preliminary Quicken Lanes type of bowl contention. We can't put that as a resurrection of a program. I will put a great example of a resurrected program as the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That football team, what they were able to do this past season in 2019 was nothing short of spectacular, and just how they get mostly in-state talent as well, Steve. And just like Arkansas gets most of their talent from Arkansas and then a little bit from Texas, Minnesota, they get most of their talent from parts of Iowa, Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin. But you look at where Arkansas is located geographically, and that is very, very key in football. Can't be underrated, that element. They are near Oklahoma. You got the University of Oklahoma there. They're near Texas. You got UT football there. Then you have the other UT over in Tennessee. Oh, and then let me drop in LSU, University of Missouri, University of Alabama. Now let's look at the team that PJ Fleck brought back into that relevance, the Golden Gophers, who I have every expectation they will remain in the top 25 this coming season. Around them, they got North Dakota State. They got South Dakota State. And then to the right, they have Wisconsin, to the south, Iowa, Nebraska, if you want to throw them into. Illinois is a bit of a stretch. So they've got about like 3 or 4 B to B plus programs that are poaching recruits away from them. Wisconsin I put as an A minus, but they've got 3 to 4 B and above rated programs that they compete with in terms of recruiting. Whereas Arkansas, I mean, literally you have Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, LSU. These are not small names. And then we'll toss in some mid-tier names like Ole Miss, University of Tennessee, University of Missouri.
Mississippi State,
6, 7,
Texas
Mississippi
A&M.
State. Texas A&M. They've got 8 or 9 programs that are B-rated and above competing with them for recruits. And these are not just programs that are like, oh, the expectation is to have 6 wins or 8 wins. These are programs that are trying to compete for the national title, that are habitually trying to position themselves to get in the playoffs. And by the way, not only do they compete with these teams for recruits, they have to play half of those teams I listed on a yearly basis. They got to play the Alabamas and the LSUs of the world. And when you mix that just double whammy, I think it'll be a huge struggle for them to even get back to 6 or 7 wins, let alone into the top 25. So to answer Isaiah's question, there is 0 chance that Arkansas football will be resurrected within the next 15 to 20 years. I'll hand it off to Ryan because Isaiah said some ridiculous stuff about the Browns not seeing that kind of losing before.
Yeah, that's the only point I'm going to respond to. Stephen knows his Arkansas football better than I possibly could, being an Ohio kid. So I'm just going to leave that to the professional. But the thing I am a professional at is experiencing losing. Being a Browns fan, I am the best at it. And here is why. Isaiah brought up the last 2 years of Arkansas football. This is 4 fingers. This represents the number of wins Arkansas had in the last 2 years. This is 1 finger. That's the number of wins the Browns had in a similar 2-year stretch when they went 1-15 and then 0-16, a 1-31 stretch in the NFL. That is absolutely unheard of. I went over a year and a half without seeing my NFL team win a game at one point in time. 1-31 is a holiday in Cleveland. Hugh Jackson Day in Cleveland. I mean, my goodness, it's levels of being terrible the NFL has never seen. Yes, there was the Detroit Lions 0-16, but I don't think they had a 1-15 before or after that. I mean, listen, I understand Arkansas hasn't been great, and being a Browns fan, I feel your pain. I really do. And I'm cheering for you guys just just because one of our teams should be good. But man, I'm sorry this idea that Arkansas is worse than the Browns have ever been. Yes, the last 2 years the Browns have been better than Arkansas, relatively speaking, but that 2-year stretch back in 15 and 16 or whatever the year was, I try to block those years out from my memory, but I'm sorry. Those
if it makes you
years are the
feel any
worst.
better, I have a lot of family who are Browns fans too. My grandfather, who passed away, about 10 years ago, he was a big Browns fan, and my uncle was a Browns fan. So,
Don't tell me they're Arkansas fans as well.
I mean, they are. I mean, we're from Arkansas, so they were
Oh,
Arkansas.
no.
Oh my God.
Arkansas and Browns
and
fans.
Browns.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
oh no.
I'm a Rams
no.
fan for the record. So there have been stretches where I have experienced major disappointment in the NFL as well. So I understand suffering. I'll just leave it at that. I understand sports suffering.
I would say you experience a different suffering, but a suffering that's probably equal, if not worse than the Browns, actually. The Jeff Fisher 8-8 eternity, like every single year, 8-8. Nothing changes, nothing gets worse, nothing gets better. Honestly, being in that limbo, I could see that being even more frustrating than some Browns years, because most Browns years were like, oh, we expect 3 wins, and sometimes we get 4. We feel a little bit of excitement, but
at least y'all changed quarterbacks every once in a while, right? Like we didn't. We kept Bulger.
But yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for your family members that are Browns and Arkansas fans, because at least I have Ohio State to always be good for me. I mean,
the Ohio State, yeah.
I am thankful for
Ohio
that.
State.
Yeah, you even said it
Ohio
wrong.
State.
You even said it wrong. It's your team.
I know. I just
All
have
right,
a lot
let's
of
move
friends.
on to.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say I have a lot of friends that get angry at me when I call it the Ohio State University, because they're like Michigan, West Virginia fans, colleges like that. So they always get upset with me when I say the. So
Evan
I've honestly
Summers.
just like Evan Summers is like one of the main ones, yes.
It's all right. You can't spell bum without so you can just let them know that, right?
Ooh. All right, let's go to our
I will
host,
let them
Trevor
know.
Williams.
All right, looking at the Arkansas Razorbacks, their last good season was in 2016 when they went 7-6, losing in the Belk Bowl. But hey, that's the Belk Bowl.
It was a good.
Yeah, but like if you keep going back further, about like 2011, they were 11-2 and won the Cotton Bowl. So like, there's potential for them to make a comeback. It's like they're digress and they're like in a rebuilding phase, but like you guys said, it's the talent trying to get it to come to Arkansas. You're recruiting really in state. You're surrounded by big programs, and just like you're torn. You're like at the battleground of the Big 12 and the SEC, and trying to keep those recruits there. And if you go up a little bit up to the north, you have the Big 10 lurking in some of those areas. So it's like you're smack dab in the heart of 3 conferences, trying to get recruits and trying to encourage them, say, hey, Arkansas is the place to go. And it's just more of the lines that Arkansas can rebuild and come back. You have to get to the point where you're in the middle of the pack of the SEC. Once you get yourself there, you're almost like sort of a contender. You can upset an Auburn every now and then. Some students may turn their heads like saying, if they can upset an Auburn can beat an Alabama once in a blue moon, or some crazy freak season they end up having. That gives you a chance of saying this team can get back into decent bowl games and impress people. I understand you don't want like some like the Idaho famous potato bowl. You don't want that. You want like a holiday bowl, or more of the lines of like, if you can get a New Year's Six, that's even perfect. It does, you like for them getting in the New Year's Six, it looks like you have to almost be at least 8-5. That's what I end up seeing, but that's back in the BCS days. So the college football playoff kind of shifts things around what you can end up getting. But if you get like, you're facing like a TCU, or you're facing an Indiana in those games, that will give your program some credibility and convince people from coming. So that's what you need to get to, face teams like that in those other conferences, so you can show people that you're ready to play and you're ready to compete in the SEC.
I agree, and I think this question is a great question just to get the conversation going about Arkansas football because you don't hear about it at all, right? So I think that this question would be more fairly asked, like I said, in like maybe 3 to 5 seasons, right? When you get a chance to see how Pittman's going to recruit in the SEC and try to keep all those Power 5 conferences away, because not only do we struggle going to other states and getting recruits, right? Like if you're really good in Arkansas, you're going to have, knocks on the door from a Tennessee. You're going to have knocks on the door from a Texas. I don't know how many times I've seen football players in the state of Arkansas go to like an LSU. There's people who live in Arkansas that grow up being University of Tennessee and University of LSU fans. Like some of my good friends who have been born and raised in Arkansas are not Arkansas fans. That's a struggle that we have, in our state because in Texas, it's not uncommon to see someone wearing a University of Texas jersey or a hat. In Arkansas, it's not uncommon to see other teams, attire being worn, football or basketball. We have a good baseball program. I mean, and a good track and field program, but it's just hard to keep in-state talent. I think that if Pittman's going to succeed, you have to keep everybody out from stealing our talent, and then you have to start venturing to places like Florida, Texas, Virginia, California, all those places where you get that real speed and power that a lot of these other power, the top 10, top 5 schools you see every season, where they get them from.
Exactly. We got to look at that regional competition. And this is going to be, like Stephen said, this is going to be a 3 to 5 year project before we can even begin to assess this question. But I think that's a good way to leave it off. And
wait,
Isaiah.
Stephen, before my internet cut out, I was saying I had to apologize for the question because I kind of worded it wrong. What I was trying to say by this question was, will Sam Pittman get Arkansas back to respectability? I wasn't trying to say will Pittman get them back to when they were winning Cotton Bowls? No, I was just trying to say will he get them back to going to being bowl eligible every year?
Yeah, I think he's got a better shot at it than not, right? Because the team that Morris left him, he's obviously going to have to work around that. And again, that's one of those. I hate to say it, right? Because anybody can get away with a prediction question by saying we don't know. But he's gonna have to prove that. Speaking of Pittman, he's gonna have to prove that the people and the talent that he brought into Georgia, because Georgia credited him a lot with recruiting, right? We have to figure out if that was because of Pittman in particular, or if it's because it was Pittman working at the University of Georgia, where how many NFL Hall of Famers come out of that program? They're one of the best SEC programs, speaking of football, all time. So it's easy to get caught up in the name of Pittman and get excited, and fans should be. I am, but you have to wonder how much people were committing to Pittman on account of who he coached for.
And I think we're going to be able to really assess that over the next couple of years. But with that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining us, Stephen. And Ryan had to exit the podcast a little early because of connectivity issues, but he just wanted to say he's sorry for taking all day long with that quarterback rankings in the AFC list.
That's no problem, Ryan.
No problem, man.
All right, I'll let Trevor wrap it up.
Hey, Trevor, one last thing before you wrap it up is I just want to give a quick announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys tune in. Next Thursday, we are going to have a very, very special guest. We have ESPN 710 Seattle radio host Paul Gallen joining us on the show. It's going to be so much fun to talk to him about Seahawks football, Washington State Cougars football, Mariners baseball, and also Houston Rockets basketball, since he worked in Houston before jumping over to Seattle radio.
Great. Excited to get started on that. All right, Trevor.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephen, for coming on the show so much. It was a great time talking sports with you. We love it. Hope for you to come back on the show so we can talk more about college football when that revamps up and other things that happen around in sports.
Yeah, guys, I had a blast. Isaiah was the one that I've been mainly conversating with, and he's getting me prepped. He was very diligent. He was awesome to deal with. So Isaiah, just want to say thank you in particular first for, being understanding and working with me and keeping me informed of the schedule and things like that. So the rest of you guys, man, it was awesome getting to talk to you. If it didn't feel forced at all, I felt like I was just hanging out with my friends. So you guys are you guys are great. I love your show. I love what you guys are doing, and I hope to hear back from you guys soon. I'd love to be back.
Thank you, Stephen. I got to say, this is probably the funnest I've had on a set of a show.
Are you just saying that because I'm here right now, or do you really mean that?
No, this really was. This was just a blast. This was super fun.
Well, thank you guys. I had just as much fun, if not more, than you guys did. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Stephen, Wang, and Isaiah for coming on today. This has been a fantastic day. For me, it's like 1:17 a.m., so I'm struggling through to the best of my ability.
You powered through it, Trevor. You powered through it. Good job.
You did all that for me, man. I'm just a guy.
It's part of the gig. You gotta do things, make things happen, continue to grow.
Trevor, you're the man. My oldest kid, his name is Trevor because it's an awesome name. So
that's awesome.
And Stephen, your name is cool too.
Yes, completely agree with that.
Isaiah, we batted your name around a little bit for kid names too, but we didn't go with it. I'm sorry. I don't have anything cool to say about your name other than we almost picked it.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Well, that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys for coming on, and, stay safe out there, wear your mask, and socially distance. And see you all next time.
Yep. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th, everybody. Yep.